Coming up, apparently it was the world's worst demo ever. No one wanted this song. Tons of artists passed over it. And the sound quality was nearly unlistenable. And the performance of the track was even worse. It was amateurish at best. It was out of time, and it was highlighted by a bizarre falsetto. It was just insanely bad. And it was about to be lost to oblivion because nobody was going to record this mess of a song. It was so bad, one band member refused a co-writing credit on it. That mistake would cost him millions. Because a surf band turned folk band turned psychedelic band heard a diamond in the rough with this song. They themselves were on their last legs, though, having released 5 straight singles that absolutely bombed. They needed a surefire hit. Who knows why they took a chance on this horrible demo? But you know what? We're glad they did, because as they say, the rest is history. It's a tale of 2 intrepid friends that have stuck together for the long haul, and their signature classic that everybody loves. And I mean everybody. It's a song that you can't not sing along to when it comes on. It's just pure magic, and you're gonna love the story behind it coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. I tell you what, if you want to be a part of a premier music community that curates the best of rock and roll through interviews, stories, and through history, you're going to want to subscribe below right now. I promise you're going to find something to like on this. It's just a trove of musical nostalgia. We also have a Patreon. Check that out for additional exclusive content. You can become an honorary producer to help us curate this music history. Okay, so it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. This is a show that takes an in-depth look into songs that transcend genre, decade, and fads, songs that are landmarks in our culture and within our society. On previous episodes, we've covered Hey Jude by the Beatles, Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel, and also Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. But for today's episode, we're returning to that same golden era in the late 60s for one of rock and roll's all-time greatest hits. So insanely good, you can't not sing along to it. From their 1967 album of the same name, talking about Happy Together by the Turtles.
Hold you tight, so happy together.
So the membership of the Turtles would change multiple times over the course of the band's original run between 65 and 70. But what remained constant was the leadership and the friendship of Howard Kaylan and Mark Volman, both of whom grew up in Westchester, California. Now, these 2 friends sang a cappella together in their high school choir. They go back that far. And when Mark discovered that Howard was in an instrumental surf band called the Night Riders, he just had to join, even though he didn't know how to play an instrument. But that didn't stop him. Said Howard about it, "I've always been attracted to funny people. So when he asked about joining the group, especially when he answered that he had no particular skills at all, I tell you, I was sold. The band could really use this guy in it. You know, a little levity, something to lighten up the situation. Because it was not a happy band," end of quote. Having Mark in the band, it just turned into a fun situation. He learned to play the saxophone, and he sang as a vocalist as well. So changing their names to the Crossfires, the band's lineup besides Kaylan and Volman was Al Nickel on lead guitar and piano, Chuck Ports on bass, and Don Murray on drums. After graduating, the Crossfires stayed together while its members attended college. As their popularity spread around the region, though, they released their first single in 1963. It was called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So the group finally got its big break in 1965 after local DJ and club owner Reb Foster heard him play. Foster liked the Crossfire so much he became their manager and secured them a contract with Whitewell Records. Now at this point, the group had renamed themselves the Turtles, intentionally misspelling the name with a Y instead of an I. Tyrtles. This was in tribute to the Byrds and the Beatles. Although the trendy spelling didn't last and they soon spelled their name with the U, the band switched to a more folk rock style, following in the footsteps of the Byrds and the growing LA folk rock scene. And the Turtles scored their first hit with a Bob Dylan cover of It Ain't Me, Babe in 1965. The song's fusion of folk with rock and roll was also lifted from the Byrds, and It Ain't Me, Babe reached number 8 in August of 1965, so they were going places. The following year, the Turtles continued in a protest style, enjoying 2 further top 30 hits. There was P.F. Sloan's Let Me Be and You Baby. However, by the start of 1967, the Turtles were running out of steam for sure. Despite scoring 3 top 40 hits, they struggled to make any waves on the charts. In fact, they released 5 straight singles that completely stiffed. The most successful among them was Grim Reaper of Love. That one came in at number 81 on the Billboard Hot 100. You had to wonder, and they wondered themselves, was this band finished? So thanks to this streak of anti-hits, the Turtles were seriously considering breaking up. However, this is right about the time when destiny would intervene. Shaken up by personal changes as well, the guys realized that if they didn't score another hit soon, their run was over. And in Kaylan's words, I for one wasn't ready for a day job. So the band focused their efforts on the familiar task of hunting for a hit single. It was a process that entailed listening to hundreds of demos sent by publishing companies to record labels and artists. So hours upon hours upon hours of sifting through hopeful hits. This is what these guys went through. Said Howard Kaylan about it. Unlike a lot of other new bands of the late 60s, we didn't write our own A-sides. We wanted badly to be the Beatles, but the problem, according to White Well, was that John and Paul were great songwriters, and we were not. We wrote our B-sides and our album cuts, but these guys were really old school show business creeps who believed that kids were good enough to sell records, but the writing, that belonged to the professionals. Even so, the Turtles, they went through stacks of demo recordings, knowing that this was likely going to be their last chance. This was going to be their make or break moment with this song. Maybe they didn't know how to write a hit song, but as a group, they were confident they could find one, that they could hear it. And you know what? They did. Enter Happy Together.
If I should call you up, invest a dime, and you say
Happy Together was the brainchild of an obscure New York-based musician named Alan Gordon, who was the drummer of a 60s band called The Magicians. Gordon wrote the track with Magicians vocalist Gary Bonner. The duo then cut a demo of Happy Together and offered it to various acts of the day, including the Happenings and the Vogues and the Tokens. However, no one liked it. Everybody passed. That is until the Turtles. We're going to talk more about Gordon and Bonner in just a second. You're going to like this. Dropping the needle on a rather worn-out looking hunk of vinyl, Kaylan and company heard Happy Together for the very first time. It was terrible. The record had been passed around for so long that the acetate was worn out, and it made the song all but unlistenable. The band immediately understood why no one had jumped on this one yet. According to Kaylan, the demo consisted of one guy strumming an acoustic guitar while the other singing a bizarre falsetto and pounded out some kind of rhythm on his legs. It was abysmal.
you belong to me, you lose my mind. Imagine how the world could be.
Volman actually echoed Kaylan's low opinion of this demo, calling it amateurish, lacking any kind of professional performance. However, and it's a big however, despite the poor condition of the record and the lackluster performance, the Turtles thought that they heard a diamond in the rough here. They believed that they might have found their hit, so they had White Well contact Bonner and Gordon, who then flew out to Los Angeles for a meeting. It actually included a live performance of the song. And apparently, when Gary Bonner pulled out his guitar and Alan Gordon started to slap his knee in time, it sounded even worse than the demo, according to the story. But it didn't matter. The Turtles knew they wanted this song, and a deal was struck. Surprisingly, though, the band wasn't really in much of a hurry to get it recorded, even though they were up against the wall there. Maybe they needed to make sure the audience would respond to it well, but they actually spent the next 8 months on the road perfecting their take on the song. When they finally did get to the studio, though, they had this track down cold. As engineer Bruce Botnick remembers, the session for Happy Together, it was really short. The instruments only took about 3 hours to record, and then maybe another 3 hours to do vocals, if that. Happy Together was basically done in half a day.
So very fine, so happy together.
Howard Kaylan recalls that he recorded the lead vocals in one take. In fact, he was so confident he had it down pat that in his words, he decided to be kind of a jerk about it. Knowing he'd have more chances to record his vocals if he wanted, he threw in a joke ending for the song, singing that now iconic line, "And how is the weather?"
And how is the weather?
It's true the lyric had been on the original demo, but it wasn't part of the Turtles' version. Basically, Howard was just screwing around by the time he got to the end of the song. Still, everyone in the studio laughed when they heard him sing this, and the band decided that they just had to keep it. Now, as we continue to break down the song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. The glasses I always wear on here. With inflation really out of control, Zenni is such a great deal if you need a new pair of glasses or anybody in your family. If you click on our info button right up here, or our link below, you can design your own pair of glasses for up to 80% off regular retail prices. You're going to love it. Check it out today. So Howard Kaylan would say, "Happy Together remains the only time I've left a recording session knowing that I had just made a #1 record. It was not only the Turtles' biggest hit record, it changed just about everything for us. It still defines me. But despite what the title implies, Happy Together is not exactly about a couple who are happy in love. Rather, according to co-writer Gary Bonner, the song is about unrequited love. The desperate singer is in fact asking the girl to imagine how the world could be so very fine if they were together. So not a love song."
Day and night, it's only right to think about the girl you love.
When Happy Together was released in January of 1967, the band immediately knew they had a hit on their hands. Like Kaylan said, "Our song was everywhere in a big hurry. I heard it every half hour on every radio station in LA. How could it not be, though? When you think about it, Happy Together, it's pure pop perfection. It really is. This is one of those songs, it's stuck in your head the minute you hear it. And it's actually a good thing. It's just such a fun, easygoing, happy, joyful song, you can't help but sing along. Of course, it was a massive success. I mean, it entered the Billboard Hot 100 at number 79 on February 11th. 6 weeks later, it had the top spot. Claimed the #1 spot, and it did that for 3 weeks. And in the process, the Turtles actually replaced their idols, the band that they said they desperately wanted to be just like, the Beatles, and it replaced Penny Lane, actually.
Penny Lane, there is a barber showing photographs of every...
Happy Together, it also went to #1 on the Cashbox chart. Internationally, it reached number 25 in Australia. It went to number 20 in Sweden, number 19 in Ireland, number 12 in the UK, number 11 in Germany, number 9 in Norway, number 3 in South Africa, number 2 in Canada and New Zealand. So on May 14, 1967, the Turtles appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show for the first of 2 times. The stage had a colorful psychedelic background with the word Turtles written in a funky, wavy style. I absolutely love watching Mark Volman's antics whenever they perform this song. Plus, check out his sweater with the tie knitted on front. It's just hilarious. The Turtles then came back for an encore performance later that year. I think it was in November. Once again, they delivered Happy Together, as well as their hit She's My Girl. This time, Kaylan was sporting a thick, kind of a Magnum PI mustache, and this was years before Tom Selleck. Love it. Decades later, Happy Together has continued to thrive in all kinds of pop culture media, from commercials
only on Nintendo 64
to television shows like The Wonder Years and ER, Scrubs, The 70s Show,
Them tight.
So happy together.
The Boys, and Big Bang Theory. It's turned up in movies like Ernest Goes to Camp, Freaky Friday, The Simpsons movie, 27 Dresses, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Minions.
Stop singing right now. Leo, I'm gonna hit a rap.
It's also been covered by a long list of artists, including The Ventures, Captain and Tennille, Crowded House, Donny Osmond,
So happy together.
Todd Rundgren. REM's done a cool version of it, Neil Young, Filter, Jackson Browne, Frank Zappa, and Weezer, to name a few. In 1999, BMI declared Happy Together the 44th most performed song of the 20th century. Back then, it told something like 5 million performances on American radio, television, and movies, placing the Turtles in the same league as their idols, the Beatles, and plenty of other headline acts like Simon and Garfunkel, Eagles, Elvis Presley, and on and on and on. Very prestigious list. Currently, Happy Together boasts over 600 million streams on platforms like Spotify and YouTube. I mean, people from every generation continue to love this song, which leads us to another part of the story. One that cost a potential co-writer of this song millions of dollars in royalties, a fortune. Let me explain. We talked about the song's composers, Alan Gordon and Gary Bonner. When they wrote the song, they were in the Boston area group The Magicians. I mentioned that before. Well, the song originated with Alan Gordon. He had about half the song written. That half song was mostly in the lyrical ideas, but he couldn't find the right melody. So at the time, his band, they were in a week-long engagement at a club in Boston, and one morning he went over to visit his father. He stopped to get some breakfast first. He was really tired because he hadn't gotten any sleep the night before because of the gigs. So he's tired. He's having a bad bout of writer's block, trying to finish this song. And at that moment, there was this open string pattern that was playing endlessly in his head. It's kind of a guitar exercise that his guitarist, a guy named Alan Jacobs, would play over and over to tune and retune his guitar between songs during gigs and during practice. All of a sudden, some words came along with this pattern, and in just a few minutes, he had a pretty decent song that was taking shape. So he went over to this guy's house, the guitarist, Alan Jacobs, and he asked him to finish the song with him and co-write, since part of the melody came from this incessant guitar tuning exercise he always did. Amazingly, Alan Jacobs refused it. He said the song was just too simple for him to even be involved. So he went to his regular writing partner, Gary Bonner, to finish it. So basically, that cost guitarist Alan Jacobs a fortune in royalties, turning down the song for being too simple. I mean, what a story.
No matter how they toss the dice, it had to be.
So what happened to the Turtles after Happy Together? Well, their follow-up, She'd Rather Be With Me, also written by Bonner and Gordon, nearly replicated Happy Together's success. It actually became the group's second biggest single. It peaked at number 3. A few more hits would follow from there, including She's My Girl and Eleanor, great song, among others.
She's my girl.
However, by 1970, the Turtles were rapidly disintegrating due to disputes with their label, and the band ultimately broke up. For their next chapter, Howard Kaylan and Mark Volman put a new act together that they called Flo and Eddie. For a time, it found a home with Frank Zappa's Mothers of Invention. The pair also sang backing vocals on several T-Rex hits. There's a fun clip of them performing together on the Midnight Special in 1976. Again, check out Volman's tie. In the 1980s, the pair kept busy with a number of projects, including hosting their radio show on K-Rock FM in LA and WXRK in New York. They also recorded soundtrack music for children's shows like Strawberry Shortcake and the Care Bears.
And thousands of these.
What a day, hip hooray.
I mean, I remember seeing the Strawberry Shortcake at Big Apple Pie or at Big Apple City, whatever it's called. My sister watched it all the time, and these songs, they definitely made their way into my psyche. Notably, they also sang backup on Bruce Springsteen's Hungry Heart, his first top 10 hit. In 1983, the Friends secured the legal rights to the name The Turtles, and they started touring as The Turtles featuring Flo and Eddie. They, of course, called it the Happy Together Tour. In 1991, Music Club Records released a Turtles anthology in the United Kingdom, Happy Together, The Best of the Turtles. And of course, the pair have continued to have more adventures that I don't have time to mention here in the new millennium, but maybe we'll talk about it. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to know. But suffice to say, the listening public's love for Happy Together has never slowed. We're closing in on 60 years later, and this song is as beloved as ever. It's an absolute eternal standard. I dare you to try and not sing along to this song. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about the Turtles and Happy Together, one of the catchiest songs ever. What are your memories of this song? What do you think about this guy losing millions of dollars because he wouldn't allow a co-writing credit? This is funny. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Check us out on Patreon. And until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.